We had a joyous Easter morning. It's really something. Hundreds of people, a huge feast, brass, music. It wasn't great weather, but it wasn't bad weather. And allowing for the time difference on the other side of the world, about as far as you can get from here, 8 Islamic terrorists, suicide bombers, detonated bombs in 3 churches and 3 hotels in Sri Lanka. 259 dead. People were standing in communion line when the bombs went off. Little children were just coming back from their Easter breakfast to join their parents in worship when the bombs went off. Ushers who were welcoming the guys with the backpacks into church to celebrate were there when the bombs went off. Over 500 more people were injured. I didn't know anything about Sri Lanka, except that it used to be called Ceylon when it was part of the British Empire. So this week I looked into it. There's 21.5 million people in Sri Lanka, 1.5 million of whom are Christians. Now, the first Christians arrived in Sri Lanka in the year 72. So a long time before they made it to Gothenburg, Sweden, or England, let alone Dover, Massachusetts. And then when the Portuguese came later, they brought Roman Catholicism in 1505. And so most of the Christians now in Sri Lanka are Roman Catholics. But Christians are still the minority in that country. 70% of the country are Buddhist. 12.5% are Hindus. 9.7% are Muslims. 7.4% are Christians. But in that country, there are groups of radical extremist Muslim terrorists whose objective is to wipe out or drive off the Christian minority as a symbol of the West, and also to bring fear to places where Christianity is more prevalent. They want to create pure Muslim zones. In this world of a time when so many people are xenophobic about the other, they want to build a wall and keep everyone out. And they want to bomb and knife and kill and burn and shoot until everyone who's not like them either dies or moves away. And just so we don't characterize these people as total madmen, even though clearly to do such a thing is diagnosable, 2 of the bombers were 2 sons of one of the wealthiest men in Sri Lanka, a billionaire spice trader. So educated at Oxford. Upper and middle class people who were educated. So here we are in Dover, about as far from Sri Lanka in every way possible as we can get. We are the Dover Church. And in the old days, we were what would be called the establishment church. In fact, there was no other church in Dover. That's why we were called the Dover Church when this church started. But none of us feel in any danger of any persecution whatsoever. In fact, I would say our danger is the opposite danger. We are in danger of having too low a profile, where people know that we're up here, but no one knows what goes on in here because we're all so reticent about talking about these things. In fact, we'd sort of fall under the parable about keeping your light under a bushel basket, where Jesus says a light is to be set on a lampstand, not put under a bushel basket. But, many of us worry about talking about our faith because we're afraid that people will think that we're religious nuts. But what I discovered since last Easter, in reading all week, is that persecutions of Christians is a huge trauma out in the world. And I'm not referring to the first world problems we have here in America, where there are Supreme Court cases over folks who don't want to bake wedding cakes for gay or lesbian couples because it interferes with their religious beliefs, or they don't want to provide health care to their employers because they don't agree with contraception on religious grounds, which to me seems sort of a backhanded way of persecuting others, saying that you're persecuted. But I went to this organization called Open Doors USA, and I fact-checked them through a bunch of different means, and they seem to be on the up and up, an honest organization that's not out there on any side really, except that they're a Christian organization that wants to support Christians worldwide, and they're working in 60 countries. And their primary goals are getting Bibles to people in countries where Bibles are forbidden, to help women and children advance in countries where women and children are kept down, and to help rebuild churches and other Christian buildings that are burned down, blown up, or whatever. And on their website, they say that 245 million Christians experience high levels of persecution worldwide. And by persecution, they say risk of imprisonment, loss of their homes or assets, torture or beatings, beheadings, rape if you're a woman, being cast out of your family of origin if you're a convert. Every month, 345 Christians are killed for faith-related reasons. That's 11 every day somewhere in the world. 105 churches and Christian buildings are burned or attacked every month. That was 1,266 last year. 219 Christians are detained every month without trial, arrested, sentenced, and imprisoned. That's 2,625 last year. And the primary cause is Islamic oppression. In large parts of the world where Christians and Muslims are living side by side. Sub-Saharan Africa. And this is particularly true for people who are born into Muslim families, where their families cast them out. They get discriminated against for jobs, or they're violently attacked. And if they're women, it's even worse. You've heard the stories about the things that go on in South Asia with women. Then there are lots of places where there's state-sponsored persecution, where Christians are seen as potential threats to authoritarian regimes in places like China or North Korea, Myanmar, Vietnam, or where Christians are the non-traditional or minority group in a sea of other people. Or finally, if they happen to live in countries where they lack basic human rights, which is the case in many countries. So here in Europe and North America, we see churches going to sleep and going away, closing through poor leadership or apathy, or we just become too much like the culture that surrounds us, so there's nothing special about what we do. We're reluctant to witness. And by witness, I say, do something outside these walls that's consonant with our faith persuasion. While the people in the Middle East, where Christianity started, are almost gone. In sub-Saharan Africa, there are more Lutherans in Africa than there are in Europe and North America now. And they're being attacked by their Muslim neighbors. In Asia, people are literally dying or living in fear of dying for their faith. So while today I say that we pray for the people of Sri Lanka, I don't think that's enough. I don't think it's enough to be the Dover Church, where we are happy on our island here of Dover and we're safe. We're not here to take care of our own needs. We're here to serve the world in Jesus' name, starting right outside these doors, but reaching across the world. And when I say that, please understand, I'm not a triumphalist Christian. I don't believe everyone has to be a Christian. I'm happy you want to do what you want to do. But Jesus is very clear. You have to serve your neighbors. And I know you're thinking, what could we possibly do here in Dover, so far from Sri Lanka? Well, I have some suggestions. And it starts with number one. So you're at a party here in Dover, and someone is talking in some way about something that refers to those people or that place. And rather than just keeping your head down and getting a fresh drink, say, sorry, but I have to disagree. And you're not sorry that you disagree, that you have your own opinion. You're sorry that unfortunately we're going to have this moment of friction. And it's not that I want to disagree, but I have to disagree. And even if you can't say exactly why you have to disagree, because this person has stated a bunch of facts, it's fair enough to say, I have to disagree because something you're saying, which I can't exactly put my finger on right now, is rubbing me the wrong way about everything I believe about life and humanity and creation and why we're put on this earth. And I know what you're thinking. Max, if I do that, I won't get invited to any more parties. And that's true. Your party invitation list will go down. I know. It happens. But you can invite them to your house. For example, on May 10th, we're hosting an iftar here in Craft Hall. Some of our Muslim neighbors have wanted to get together with us, and they're going to buy the food, and we're providing the hall. And an iftar is a feast that the Muslims have after sunset on Ramadan, so you all have to keep it together until the sun goes down. But it's an opportunity to come meet real live Muslims who live in our town. Not to get into it about why are you people so crazy, right? Because they could say the same thing about the Christians. Why are you people so crazy? But to get to know people and to build community and get over the fears. So please, come, let us know. Plus the food's going to be great. Now comes the harder things you can do. I mean, although I'm sorry I have to disagree is tough enough. But you can vote. You can vote for our leaders who will lead our country to promote human rights around the world and to promote the rule of law around the world. This rule of law and the lack of human rights are the primary cause of oppression and violence and poverty in the world. You go to any country where people are poverty-stricken, it's because their government is falling apart or corrupt. But we can help do something about that. We can support countries that do promote the human rights and dignity and rule of law for their citizens, and we can turn away from those who don't. North Korea, Iran, right? It's no mystery who these people are. And finally, you can do something really crazy. You can join the Jewish Anti-Defamation League, or B'nai B'rith. You can join the NAACP. You can join the National Organization for Women, or UNICEF, or Greenpeace, or the Council on American Islamic Relations, or, and I don't know if you know it, and he's not here today because he's probably working on something about this right now. Rodney Peterson, who sings in the choir, is the director of the Cooperative Metropolitan Ministries. That's all about bringing together people of different faiths around the metropolitan Boston area. You can work with him. He's here every Sunday almost. Lives in Yellow House right down here on the right. The only thing we can't really do and still feel like we have some integrity as disciples is nothing. You know, Martin Luther King said in the civil rights struggle, the danger is not the Ku Klux Klan. The danger is the well-meaning folks who do and say nothing. So just because it doesn't touch us here in Dover, and I know we live in Dover, so we don't have to deal with this stuff in our lives, but just because it doesn't touch us here, it is real out there in the world for our brothers and sisters in the church. And it's infecting the world. And God's love, we believe, at least I believe, and I preach it, God's love is the antidote. And in a way, we're supposed to be the needles that deliver the vaccine. Amen.